Well, it's Tuesday, the 24th of August, and it's the day after I made this post about how Four Corners, the ABC's premier investigative program, has never once in 30 years investigated Australia's deadliest medical scandal with thousands of deaths. Instead, last night it ran yet another story about the former American President Donald Trump. Now, look, I agree, he's a global figure and someone of interest to lots of people, but for us here at Infected Blood Australia, a group campaigning for victims of Australia's deadliest medical scandal, we've had enough. We want to see more local Australian stories. We've got people with the bleeding disorder haemophilia who've been left with HIV and hepatitis C, many of them. These are the survivors. We've had 1,400 haemophilia deaths. This is from a possible 2,000 haemophiliacs that were in Australia in the 1980s when they were delivered these contaminated treatments by the vaccine and blood products maker CSL. This is Australia's first $100 billion company. Well, I've been attacked today, and I was attacked by a group that CSL fund. This is Australia's Haemophilia Foundation Australia, okay? And they're very, very well resourced. So for a small group like ours, which has no resources, a multi-million dollar Goliath like that coming out and attacking you means that, in their eyes, our days are numbered. And their president, Gavin Finkelstein, came out today and basically, or yesterday, whenever he made it, and he attacked us for talking about the ABC. And he said, I think you can read it there, Gavin Finkelstein, funded by CSL, the vaccine maker, who also make the AstraZeneca vaccine and blood products that have killed 1,400 Australians. He's the president, supposedly, of a foundation for haemophiliacs, who's never once called for an inquiry, never once said anything bad about CSL. And he says, I thought these posts on haemophilia were supposed to be about haemophilia, not hijacked by conspiracy theories not relevant to haemophilia. Well, I don't know how telling people that the ABC and Four Corners have never investigated the haemophilia scandal, 1,400 haemophilia deaths or tens of thousands of blood transfusion deaths to contaminated blood. I don't know how that's a conspiracy, Gavin Finkelstein. But Gavin has attacked me on a number of occasions. He's also defamed me, and that slander case is now with our lawyers. Some weeks ago, he accused me of mental illness, and this was because I had questioned how it is that Australia doesn't have an inquiry into tens of thousands of deaths as a result of contaminated blood. Authorities in Australia say, including Greg Hunt, the health minister, that these haemophilia foundations don't speak up about it. Everyone says that we had best science advice and everything was perfect. Well, that's simply not true. During the HIV crisis, the Australian authorities and blood banks were advertising for blood donors in sexually explicit publications. This is the gay publication, the Sydney Star. There you go. During the HIV crisis, the 80s, this is above a male bathhouse there. There you go. There's an advertisement. There's a dirty bookstore, but there you are. And they could send mobile blood vans out, and they did, to male prostitutes who wanted to, get syphilis and hepatitis B tests, which came complimentary. If you, in the 1980s in Australia, if you donated blood, they give you, and you thought you were at risk, they give you a discreet syphilis and hepatitis test. They also utilised and exploited gay blood donors in the 1980s, along with the American pharmaceutical company Merck in Australia, to develop a blood-based hepatitis B vaccine. In the 1980s, vaccines were blood-based often. And this hepatitis B vaccine that was developed here in Australia and in New York, I think in San Francisco as well at the same time, that's been covered up because what happened was something obviously went very, very wrong, and the contaminated blood happened. And HIV rose faster, apparently, in Australian blood supplies than it did even in countries with far bigger populations like the United Kingdom, because the Australian Red Cross and this pharmaceutical company Merck have been running dangerous vaccine development. Obviously, they hit an iceberg. And we know this because what they did, authorities then quickly came out in the 1980s to try and demonise the gay community. I think the Red Cross came out and said, promiscuous blood donors, this is when HIV first hit blood supplies, promiscuous gay blood donors should stop donating blood. And that then wrongly gave the community the idea that the gay donors or gay people had been responsible for this. No, not at all. That's the outrage. That's why we're fighting for an apology also for everybody, for every contaminated blood victim and for every member of the gay community who may have been subject to frankly, abuse because of this and discrimination and potentially even worse. I was contacted recently by a wonderful person and they'd lost a cousin because he committed suicide in response to the hatred that went around the 80s. So, it's just disgraceful that they blamed the gay community seemingly for tainted blood, but they didn't mention how authorities had been specifically targeting the gay community for blood donations so that they could collect blood plasma to make up haemophilia treatments, and also so that they could develop hepatitis B vaccines. Now, this is the publications that they advertised during the HIV crisis. And this Haemophilia Foundation have never once called for an inquiry. So here he is, calls me crazy, okay? Calls me basically the purveyor of conspiracies for questioning why it is that Australia's public broadcaster has never investigated its nation's deadliest medical scandal, okay? Now, for years, all I've ever had is accusations. I've been campaigning pretty much since I was a kid. I also went to school with a little boy who had haemophilia, who acquired HIV and lost his life to AIDS, okay? And so I've been fighting here ever since, trying to get an inquiry or trying to get help, the sort of help that's available overseas routinely to people who are survivors of this haemophilia scandal or the infected blood scandal. And I've been told that I'll lose my life. I've received credible information over the years from very credible people that the people that finance the Haemophilia Foundation Australia and these guys, that the blood products and vaccine giant CSL will murder me. And so I've been told that. And I've given my lawyers that note. And this leads me on to the UK. Now, right now in the UK, they've got their largest ever legal inquiry called the Infected Blood Inquiry. I think a year and a half ago, I received a Rule 9 request from that inquiry that I become a witness. I'm a citizen of both countries. I came to Australia at age 4. I'm from Scottish and Welsh background. I was born in London. Quickly, my relatives brought me over here where we had Australian relatives. And so when I received this request from the UK's largest ever legal inquiry, I wanted to do the right thing, and I fully complied and I fully told the truth. Well, that statement of mine has not been published. It was submitted over a year ago, and it's incredible. And as a result, no one down here believes us. And the British government are involved. That's the outrage of this. A lot of these contaminated blood treatments and the protocols by which Australia ran its blood supply came from England. They've been helping victims of their deadliest medical scandal, contaminated blood, since 2003. The victims are able to get access financial assistance. When we tried to get the same here in 2004, we had a pathetic Senate committee look at it, and we said we should have financial assistance for haemophiliacs. And guess what? They found against us. The Senate said, no, everything that happened was done with best science advice. And this man, Gavin Finkelstein, didn't do a thing. He's collecting his salaries. He didn't speak up, not even once. He didn't speak up about how the people funding his organisation, CSL, knowingly imported high-risk blood from overseas, mixed it into their blood products, rebadged as Australian blood product, and allowed that to be injected into children, killing them. He never even mentioned that, not even once. I'm the liar. I'm the crazy person. I'm the bad person. I'm the one who's going to end up in a dumpster. I'm the one who's lost everything. Okay, I'm the one who's going to get murdered. And this inquiry in the UK knows all of this. Their haemophiliacs get helped. They've got all these lawyers working for it, right? They've even had Australians as expert witness. Doctors from Australia go up and talk about ethics. And not one mention of all the people down here who've been killed by British malfeasance. We get no help because we're Australian. No one did worse out of the globe's contaminated blood scandal than Australians. No one. And everywhere we go, we get attacked. Years ago, we used to have church meetings back in the days before lockdowns. Here's a meeting I'm going to show you from 20 years ago. There's a mate of ours, Reverend Bill Cruz. We used to have these meetings for parents who'd found out that their kids have been infected, okay, with HIV and Hep C. Some of these kids are mates of mine, yeah? They're not here anymore. That's why we keep on fighting. We'd have these meetings and that the government would send their government-funded groups down. Like, you know, you've got Hep C, thousands of Australians copped hepatitis C from contaminated blood. So they'd come to our meetings and we'd ask them for help. You know, would you ask for help? You ask for help for other people with viruses, people who need clean needles, or people who need shooting galleries, or people who need more sterile equipment in prisons. You do all of that. Will you help haemophiliacs who've got Hep C? Will you help women who got Hep C through childbirth? And here are all these people right at these meetings. And here he is. Here's the government's guy on Hep C. I've just put the volume up here. Forgive me for the technical issues.
Treatment, they cover prevention, they cover discrimination, they cover care and support, they cover education, they cover workforce development.
Would you ever publicly advocate for comprehensive compensation for medically acquired Hep C so they could do those things?
Okay, the question was,
would the Hep C Council ever publicly advocate for comprehensive assistance to those people who acquire Hep C through no fault of their own so they could have access to all those things that you're talking about?
the council would certainly look to not look at whether there is an innocent or guilty student, because when you mention the word innocence, you automatically think of the word guilty. From the council's point of view, we feel that rather than talk of innocence, we'd rather think in terms of culpability.
I didn't say innocent or guilty. No, I didn't say innocent or guilty. I said those who acquired it through a blood transfusion, through medically acquired it. I wasn't saying they were innocent or guilty.
Yes, okay. But we've seen terminology such as innocent. I saw the program about innocent victims.
I'm not asking that. I didn't see the program.
Okay.
How would you feel like it? There you go. That was the government, the Hepatitis Australia, who are financed by the Australian taxpayer to the tune of millions and millions, a bit like this Haemophilia Foundation. And suddenly, people whose children had been infected with this deadly virus that's going to give their children potentially liver cancer, and it did, and it killed them. And when they ask, people start asking, you know, would you call for an inquiry or would you call for special assistance or whatever, straight away, oh, innocent. We prefer not to talk in terms of innocence. And the other day I saw a television program that spoke of innocent victim. Could you imagine being one of those parents? Could you imagine being one of my friends when we're having final conversations with me and I'm trying to tell them, you know, that it will be okay? And it's not going to be okay. They died. Okay? And I have Gavin Finkelstein, who's funded to the tune of millions of dollars, him and his organisation, a bit like Sharon Karras, who's also from the Haemophilia Foundation, who once rang me up and basically threatened me because I was bringing in haemophiliacs from around the world to help us down here. And the ABC, Four Corners, Australia's premier investigative program, has never once investigated Australia's deadliest medical scandal. I'm the crazy person. I'm the one who's going to end up dead in the dumpster, apparently. I need your help. If you could go to our bio, if you could share this video everywhere. Okay, we're all in lockdown. We're all suffering under these medical tyrants. If you're one of these people who's injured by one of these COVID-19 experiments, this is the future that awaits you. They're going to get every organisation, say for example it's an autoimmune a charity or some, they'll corrupt that and they'll basically come out against you, just like this Haemophilia Foundation have for us. Yeah. Imagine the Cancer Council. You know, I say that cigarettes or darts, you know, give people lung cancer, and the Cancer Council come out and say, oh, you know, you're crazy. You're crazy, you're a conspiracy theorist. Would you ask questions of the Cancer Council? You'd certainly give them less donations, and you'd certainly be very upset if you found out that millions of taxpayer dollars goes towards them. I need your help. Please go to our bio. Please share this video with whoever you can. Public health's falling apart in this country, and for those internationally involved with the infected blood inquiry, where is our statement? We've got people dying without help down here. Do you realise? Do you realise, infected blood inquiry? We've got haemophiliacs with cancer. Your country lied about the safety of these blood products. The longer that you hold on to these statements and our truth, the more we get attacked. We've had decades of this. Please, please, please help us. And if you're watching this video, thank you for having stayed the distance. Thank you so much. I'm telling the truth. All of this is true. And on Thursday at 8 o'clock, we'll be going live with one of the victims of this, a haemophiliac that Gavin Finkelstein and his foundation don't want you to know about. Thank you very much.